I'm Roy Furr. This is Breakthrough Marketing Secrets, and it's Monday, which means it's time to open up my mailbox and answer your questions about marketing, copywriting, business building, and more. Today, we're going to be talking about the number one marketing secret to make more sales on every campaign. The number one marketing secret. Aren't you excited to discover what that is that's going to help you make more sales on every campaign? Well, I hope so, and I'm sure that that's why you're engaging here with this episode. I'll tell you what, we'll dive into it here. But first, before I can actually tell you what that number one marketing secret is, we have to read today's question. So the question, today's Mailbox Monday question is, what are the most important content creation tactics that can boost every marketing campaign, regardless of the niche? How to write content that engages and wows our prospects and renders them yearning for more, from M. And if you have a question you'd like to have answered in an upcoming Mailbox Monday episode, check the link in the description to ask Roy your question. So really, when I get a question like this, I step back and I say, okay, from a bigger picture perspective, what is the answer that is going to serve this person best? Not necessarily some little tactical, oh, if you put the call to action in a new color, which is often true. If you put the call to action in a unique color on the page, it's going to increase the clicks. Okay, cool, right? But if we're looking for something that's really going to move the needle across the board, regardless of industry or market or whatever, what you need to do is you need to look at core principles. Like, what principles of human nature tied to marketing are going to be those things that move the needle regardless of circumstance. So with that, here's my number one marketing and content creation secret. By the way, I'm totally going to nerd out on this one. As I was going through the notes, I was like, this is going in a lot of directions, but it's going to be so useful. Number one marketing and content creation secret is to create a sense of discovery. Create a sense that this person is going to discover, is discovering, has just discovered something big and exciting. And honestly, this is the goal of big idea marketing. So many people talk about, I want to create a big idea, right? Well, any big idea, that's all subjective to the person receiving it, to the person experiencing it. And so big idea marketing is, when it's done right, what's happening is the marketer, the copywriter, is introducing an idea that feels like a big idea to a big enough segment of the audience that the engagement levels are high. And those engagement levels with a good call to action will translate into the sales levels being high. So the goal is always this sense of discovery of something that I've never seen before, I've never heard before, I've never thought of things in that way. It's this opening to new possibilities or to new threats that need to be addressed or whatever. In no matter what sense, there's a sense of discovering something. And in my high velocity copywriting program, I teach something called the UPSEEN test, which is a way to test a big idea, whether it's going to be compelling or not for your audience before you ever even write the copy. And two of the 6 elements in the UPSEEN test are unique and new. So the idea should feel unique. It should feel different than everything that's already out there in the marketplace. So if you're copying somebody else, it's automatically not a big idea. It's not going to create a sense of discovery if you're just copying somebody else, right? So it should feel unique, but it should also feel new. It should feel like this is something that is happening right this moment, right? And so oftentimes discovery is a sense of even if, okay, there is new and there is renewed and there is a personal newness to things. And so it's not always explicitly new, but it is new to the person who is experiencing it. So unique and new, those things are absolutely critical and they are part of the discovery thing. But let's step back a minute, because in the sense of discovery, what we're doing is we are tapping into the dopamine system, the dopaminergic system. And honestly, I have a love-hate relationship with dopamine because, number one, I'm diagnosed ADHD. And one of the things that seems to be true of ADHD brains is we have less maybe our dopamine systems are more variable, or it just seems different, right? And so this is reflected oftentimes in the fact that somebody with an ADHD brain, what happens is they can concentrate quite well. They can give their attention quite well and consistently to something that is interesting to them. But if something is not interesting to them, they struggle to give their attention to that thing. So you could say like, oh, there's a class and I know it's important. And this was my experience in school. There's a class, I know it's important. It's important to get good grades. I believe in getting good grades and want to get good grades. But even though I know all those things are important, the way the teacher teaches or the subject matter or whatever wasn't interesting. And so I'd struggle in that class, right? But at the same time, if something is interesting to me, it's super easy for me to excel because like dopamine is firing on all cylinders. And one of the ways that ADHD drugs work, and I don't use them and I had a bad experience with them and don't want to use them, but one of the ways that ADHD drugs work is they actually cause the body to have different functioning of the dopamine system that makes it more consistent. And it allows people with ADHD to focus more consistently as well. Now, for a long time, dopamine was thought to be a pleasure molecule, and it's not. It is actually, if you look at when dopamine spikes in our brains, what happens is it spikes right before an experience that leads to pleasure. So it's like dopamine, experience, pleasure, and dopamine is already dropping off significantly. And so what they figured out was that the true role of dopamine is pursuit and discovery. Going back to that number one marketing secret, pursuit and discovery. And so if we're looking at what dopamine drives us to do, is it drives us to go out and discover new things, to pursue new things. And we'll talk about, for example, social media and infinite scroll in just a minute here. But as a whole, we as humans find ourselves in a world, especially with modern media and modern technology, where our dopamine systems are being just completely triggered nonstop in a way that is very inconsistent with how life was even 25, 50 years ago. And my brain that connects the dots in funny ways sometimes thought of a couple different songs with a couple different lyrics. And the first one is from a band called Tool. And if I even quoted the title of this song or quoted too many lyrics, I'd probably offend quite a few people. But this really is a song about dopamine and about this constant pursuit of more. And there's a lyric in it, not enough, I need more, nothing seems to satisfy. And when our brains are completely driven by dopamine, well, nothing seems to satisfy, nothing's enough, we need more, right? And another lyric, this one from Hamilton, and the title of this song is Satisfied. So you're like me, I'm never satisfied. It's this sense that's probably familiar, especially if you kind of wake up from scrolling through social media forever, and say like, that was just wasted time and it didn't make me happy, right? What happened was your dopamine system was triggered and triggered and triggered and triggered. And so it can be a bad thing if we don't learn to separate ourselves from some of the stimulation of the dopamine system. But the reality is, as marketers, we exist in a world in which dopamine is constantly being triggered by all the media that our prospects are consuming on a constant basis. And so we have to be aware that it really is discovery that is what triggers that. And that's what will grab and hold the attention of our prospects. That's what will make them want to pursue more. Now, there's a famous quote from King Louis XV, Après moi, the déluge. And it's often taken out of context, and I'm going to take it out of context again. Again, this was random synapse firing and my brain making connections. There's this recognition that's come up that really we are in a world of the dopamine deluge. which is just where our brains are flooded with dopamine all the time. And in large part, it's because of our smartphones. It's because of infinite scroll on social media. The average person on Facebook is scrolling the height of the Statue of Liberty every single day. You go to a news site and you're just scrolling headlines and headlines and headlines and headlines, and they're all designed to spike your dopamine, and they're all designed to have you say, oh, what's next, right? And that's what clickbait is. It's designed to spike the dopamine system and have you want to pursue whatever it is that's being promised, right? And we as copywriters and marketers have to be aware that this is what we're up against. Our marketing does not exist in isolation. It exists in this world of le déluge. Now, there's a hypnosis trainer, Mike Mandel, who I refer to from time to time, who talks about a specific principle used, or a specific functionality of the human brain that's used in order to do hypnosis inductions. And we have this PGO system, the ponto-geniculo-occipital system. And hypnotists, including Milton Erickson, one of the most famous hypnotists of all times, would exploit this spike of PGO waves in the brain that came from surprise. And so there's a very famous hypnotic induction called the handshake induction, where you reach your hand out to the person to shake their hand. But at the last minute, like, their brain is suddenly firing off this program that's like, okay, I know what a handshake is. I'm going to do a handshake with this person. And at the last minute, you grab their wrist with your other hand, you move their hand in front of their face, and there's suddenly this like surprise and confusion that goes on because it's a complete unexpected part of the handshake. And hypnotists like Erickson or like Mike Mandel would then use that confusion, that momentary confusion, and the brain looking for meaning in that to begin a hypnotic induction, right? And I'm not saying we're hypnotizing people, and hypnosis is not mind control, but online, when we're looking to get people's attention, especially online, there are a thing that as marketers we call hooks, right? We're trying to hook attention. And things like novelty, surprise, humor, shock are doing that same thing. They're creating a little spike. They're creating a spike in dopamine. They're creating these PGO spikes, right? Of like momentary desire for discovery, right? Like, what the heck is this? Right? What the heck is this? Is what your brain is saying on a conscious or subconscious level when you run into something that's like some complete surprise hook, some shock hook, some whatever hook, right? Your brain is saying, what the heck is this? And the dopamine system spikes and it pulls the attention in. And then you have to do, well, at this point in hypnosis, it's the induction, right? But in copywriting, you're not mind controlling somebody. You're not putting them in hypnosis, maybe. But this is the point where you offer them the opportunity for discovery. You give them a tangible, useful idea to reinforce that when they pay attention to you, they discover cool things, right? So your subject line is something that they want to discover, and they open it up and they're discovering something. And all of these things, when they feel like they are discovering something, it's reinforcing that dopamine system that encourages them to pursue things. Now, I feel like I haven't been talking about marketing a lot. So I want to talk about how to translate all of this into marketing results. Your marketing, when done well, and we can include content here because that was in the original question, right? Your marketing should be a path to deeper discovery around something that they are interested in. So yes, on one level, you want to get their attention in whatever way you can, but that has to be paid off in that path to deeper discovery. And that has to be relevant to your offers, right? And your CTAs on one level, your calls to action should be away from the dopamine deluge. So Facebook ads, really, even though Facebook wants them to be on Facebook for as long as possible, or YouTube ads, YouTube wants them to be on YouTube for as long as possible, your call to action needs to be away from the dopamine deluge, away from like all of this like constant overstimulation, right? Where, they just want more and more and more. It needs to slow them down so that they can engage with your message. But at the same time, you do want to be consistently providing them a sense of discovery as they go through your messaging. Almost the worst thing that can happen in any piece of copy is to get to the point where you're repeating yourself to the point where they're saying, oh, okay, get on with it. You already said that, right? And because you lost them at that point and you're not going to convert them. And then an important thing to remember is that dopamine is very short-lived, and the benefit of dopamine is very short-lived. In fact, as soon as somebody does the behavior that leads to pleasure, remember dopamine is already falling, right? And they're no longer in pursuit. And the things that maintain longer-term engagement, if we go back to the neurotransmitter level, is serotonin and oxytocin, and those are basically like the liking neurotransmitters, right? And this is the ultimate path to yearning for more, is to build up a longer term relationship with your prospects where, initially you're always giving them discovery, but then you become recognized as the person that's like sharing interesting things on a regular basis, especially when it comes to content. But then when it comes to offers, your offers should be interesting things that you're sharing on an interesting basis or on a consistent basis. And so the yearning for more translate or carries over from initially it was about the topic, and then later it's about, I have this cool relationship with this person and they're constantly providing value. And whenever I get an email from them, I'm going to open it, right? Whenever I get a piece of marketing from them, I'm going to open it. Whenever I see their name on something, I'm going to pay attention. And so we've kind of come full circle here. Initially, we were talking about, how to get their attention out of the gate. And now we're talking about building a longer term relationship. And that's how you're going to end up making more sales on every campaign. My call to action for you at the end of this episode is ask yourself how you can use this. As usual, think about implementation, think about action, think about applying this going forward. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe so you get more content like this delivered to you. And I will include a link to my high velocity copywriting course, which includes the UPSEEN test with this episode. With that, I'm Roy Furr, this Breakthrough Marketing Secrets, and I'll catch you again in the next episode. See you soon. Bye. Thank you once again for tuning in to this daily episode of Breakthrough Marketing Secrets. Remember, check out the links with this episode for even more value. Now make sure you like, comment, share, subscribe, and engage in every way you can to keep this show going and growing and delivering daily value to you. I'll catch you soon for your next big breakthrough.